Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's video I'd like to look at how the US eminis unfolded yesterday, which was Monday the 2nd of March. Let's start with the YM. The YM was actually a very quiet day. You can see here we basically had no automatic setups on the YM as the market made a rally, consolidated, then moved up higher later in the day. So very quiet day on the YM. On the ES, the only trade of the day was, if I zoom out, was this sell setup here, this one here. Now this would have been against the blue STF, so people who are using our standard trade management guidelines would have avoided this, and as such had a very quiet day yesterday with no trades. However, let's have a look at the higher time frame chart. If we go to the higher time frame chart, in our training webinar we were looking at a DP off this prior pivot high here, and you can see that the market came up into this level earlier in the day. So in our training webinar we were actually looking at this as potential resistance and looking for the ES to make a potential high in this area here. There weren't any short-term setups, there was no trades to be had earlier in the day there. However, you may have decided later in the day that this may have been a setup to consider because it was still at 15-minute resistance. If you had have done, then that would have been a -1 hour loss. Remember, use correct position sizing to keep our initial risk small and under control, and as such if you have a loss, the loss is kept small. Remember, any successful trading approach will always have losing trades. The trick is keeping those trades or those losing trades small. Let's have a look at the NQ. The NQ is a lot nicer. In other words, later in the day we had a nice DP buy setup here on a blue STF, so a standard trader would have taken this and come out at the first target for a nice 2.8 hour profit. Instantly you can see how the profits are much larger than the losses, with our -1 hour loss on the ES and plus 2.8 hour profit on the NQ. Another buy setup here on a black STF into the first target for plus 2.1 hour. If you've been a standard trader, this sell setup here would have been on a black STF, and you may well have just come out on your first or on your second trade there, and you may well have then decided to go short, and that would have been a losing trade. That was actually the same time as our ES trade, so you wouldn't have taken them both, you'd have taken one or the other. So even if you had have had -1 hour loss there, remember again the correct position size and keeping our initial risk small and control, -1 hour, then it would have been plus 2.1 hour there, and on the other trade there it had been plus 2.8 hours. So can I call that was plus 4.9 -1, that's plus 3.9. So that would have been some nice trades overall. Let's have a look at the large degree trend on the NQ. Now this is what we were also looking at in our training webinar. We had our DP off that pivot the prior day. In fact, it was actually the day before, ever so slightly there on last. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cough. Last Thursday. Now we looked at this and actually looking at the NQ being the stronger market, so it wouldn't be the one we were looking to sell. If anything, it would be one to look to go for long trades, particularly when the market made two consecutive closes a bit later in the day after our training webinar here. Our webinar ended at 11:30 there, so we actually had two consecutive closes on the 15-minute chart up into here beyond our 15-minute DP. This would have deemed the large trend to be up. Remember, we don't look at the closes back below the DP for then a reversal. Basically, once the DP has been breached, which it was here, the large trend is then deemed to be up. In other words, even though these bars came below on the 15-minute chart, this still means the large trend is up because it was breached here first. So let's see how that looked on our 3-minute chart. Well, our 3-minute chart means that we'd still be taking this DP buy and this TS1 buy here as well, because the large trend was up. The only thing you would have avoided is this sell setup here, so that would have been very nice. The only adjustment more experienced users may well have done is because the 15-minute chart then completed this pivot down into here, you could have gone back to the prior pivot, which would have been that high there, and placed this DP resistance on your chart. Remember, these DP resistance areas, support and resistance areas, are on your chart in advance. They're leading indicators, so that would have been on the chart there before the market got there. So how would that have helped you on the 3-minute chart? Well, in particular, maybe this TS1 buy setup, if you were long of this, you might well have said, well, actually I don't want to come out of the first target because I know there's a higher time frame resistance there a bit later in the day, so I might well use the ATR stop to trail until I get up into that higher time frame resistance. Then because you're pretty close to the end of the day, you might well just decide to take a 4.6 hour profit. So that would have increased your profit on your second trade of the day there, which would have been very nice. But if you hadn't have done that and you'd have kept it simple and kept out at the first targets, still a plus 2.1 hour profit, and this DP buy here for plus 2.8 hour profit would have meant it would have been a good day overall on the NQ. So keeping the losses small on the ES at just minus 1 hour on just that one trade there, and having a couple of good profitable trades on the NQ there, would have had a good day overall for MTPredictor. And this has been a good example of how you combine the higher time frame support and resistance for your large blue trend, and you actually combine that in with our STF indicator here as well to get which direction you should be trading in. So a good day for MTPredictor yesterday, particularly later in the day when we had these nice buy setups here on the NQ.